Chuck Schumer is not having a good week. There are Democrats right now calling for Chuck Schumer to resign. They want Chuck out. And it looks like Hakeem Jeffries will not be far behind him because they're calling for him to get out of the way too. Now, why is this happening? I made this picture here. I'm sorry. I thought it was kind of funny. I called it Chuck-a-doodle-doo because that's really what it is. I feel like right now, Chuck Schumer is just like a rooster, right? And he's just like, Chuck-a-doodle-doo, just following a beck and a call. And that is about the GOP spending bill. Now, I told you before that things are not what they seem. While most Democrats refuse to support the GOP spending bill, Chuck Schumer, who is obviously in the Senate and the leader in the Senate for the Democrats, decided that he would vote for the GOP spending bill. This is Trump's bill that Trump wanted to get passed. And I ask this question to you and all of you folks. Chuck Schumer and many alike have continued to say that Donald Trump is Hitler and all these other things. The question that I pose, if this is all true, why are you supporting his spending bill, which Democrats have said this is going to hurt working class people? Why? Because it's one big party. Now, before that vote took place, AOC did make an appearance here on CNN. I want you to hear what she had to say about what Chuck Schumer was about to do.
What do you think of the job Democratic leaders are doing, not just Senate Democratic leaders, but also Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, your fellow New Yorker, in terms of standing up to Trump?
Well, when we look at this vote around this government funding bill that we saw this week, Leader Hakeem Jeffries was able to keep the entire House Democratic caucus united and together.
Except for Jared Golden.
Right. Every single House Democrat, including every single House Democrat who won a Trump district, except for one out of over 200, voted against this deeply partisan, extreme Republican spending bill. Not just because they're Democrats, but because they know it's bad for the country. This bill is bad for the country. And so I think that in terms of Democratic leadership in the House, we've seen that result in the House. I think it's time that we see similar results in the Senate.
Would you, what do you think of the job that Chuck Schumer is doing? Would you ever challenge him, do you think?
I think that what we need right now is a united Senate Democratic caucus that can stand up for this country and not vote for cloture and not vote for this bill. And I think that the strength that we have is in this moment. Reconciliation and all of these, Republicans do not need Democratic votes for that. They need it for this. And so the strength of our leadership in this moment is going to demonstrate the strength of our caucus. And I cannot urge enough how bad of an idea it is to empower and enable Donald Trump and Elon Musk in this moment. It is dangerous and it is reckless.
Well, you just talked about...
Pause. I just want to point out what she just did. He asked her, like, specifically, would you ever challenge Chuck Schumer? She didn't answer the question. Okay. So as much as AOC is trying to look like she's trying to be a fighter right now, she's really trying to maintain, the partisan politics. She's really trying to continue to be a part of that club. Because the question was, would you challenge Chuck Schumer? She didn't want to say yes or no, because she still wants to be a part of the club. This is something that I want people to pay close attention to. There are a number of people right now, after Chuck Schumer's vote, that are asking AOC publicly to run against Chuck Schumer and get his seat. But she won't even answer the question about whether or not she's willing to challenge him, because the reality is she's not willing to challenge him. These are what we call fake fighters, right? You know how we got here? We got here because the squad, and at the time that had a narrow majority, chose not to use that narrow majority to get any type of leverage from the corporate Democrats, the Dem leadership at that point in time. That's how we got here. And because they did not do that, they really didn't get any type of progressive policies or anything that they could have gotten for the working class people, because they decided not to force the vote on Medicare for all. It didn't even have to be Medicare for all. It could have been anything. They decided not to force the vote, not to use their leverage. So then what happens a couple of years later? The Freedom Caucus in the Republican Party decides, oh, hey, that was a strategy. Maybe we could use that. They decide, to use that strategy, to actually do that strategy against Kevin McCarthy for speaker. It was really a slap in the face to the squad, but apparently they didn't see it that way. They were just like, oh my God, the Republican Party is a mess. You see all this fighting going on? But that's what you guys were supposed to do. That was the assignment of Justice Democrats, to go into the Democratic Party and have a hostile takeover of that party. Once they got in, they decided that they want to get along and they want to be political careerists. So that never happened. So I don't want you to be fooled by all of this hoopla right now of people saying, AOC, you should challenge Chuck Schumer for his seat. She's not going to do that because she still wants to continue to be a part of the club. Also, there is a risk that she could lose and you're just out of there. And now you got no House seat and you damn sure don't have a Senate seat. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue on.
But the strength of your leadership, Chuck Schumer just said that he's going to vote for cloture. Not only the Democrats can do it, but he's going to participate in it. Does that mean that you think he's a weak Senate leader?
I think that that would be a mistake, but we have time between now and tomorrow, and I hope that individuals that are considering that reconsider it. I genuinely do. I don't think it's what New Yorkers want. I don't think it's what the country wants. This is genuinely not about Democrats or Republicans. This is about deep cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. This is about the evisceration of the federal government. This is about codifying the looting that is happening at the behest of Elon Musk in order to pay for his tax breaks for billionaires. And we have a responsibility to stand up for it. That is why people elected us, and that is our responsibility to them right now.
So again, she didn't answer his other question, and he was asking her if she believes that Chuck Schumer is weak. And she wouldn't answer that question because she don't really want to fight either. Does everybody see the problem with the Democratic Party? And I hate to do the I told you so thing, but I was telling Eric about this earlier before we even went live. This is one of those perfect we told you so moments about the Democratic Party. The number of people who called me names, shamed me, wagged their finger at me, called me a right winger, even though I was voting for Jill Stein. The number of people who came after me in 2024 because I refused to settle for a candidate that had no progressive agenda, a candidate that would not commit to not giving, Israel weapons to continue a genocide, a candidate that, according to Biden, very much so was in the room in agreement with all of these policymaking decisions, a candidate who called themselves a Zionist and said they heavily and always support Israel. I was shamed for not wanting to support that candidate. And I was told that it was more important to do so that you don't get Donald Trump. First of all, I live in Massachusetts. So second of all, I knew that this is where things were headed. The problem that you ran into with the squad not using that narrow majority that they had at that point in time is that now they don't get to use it because now they don't have a narrow majority. You have to use it when you have it. And now there's nothing they can do. They can go on to CNN and complain and say, Chuck Schumer, please do not vote for this bill. But at the end of the day, if Chuck Schumer votes for it, what are they going to do? They're not going to leave the party. They're not going to, she wouldn't even call him weak. She wouldn't even tell you if she's willing to challenge him. They're not really going to stand up to anything. We knew this when they weren't willing to stand up against the genocide. We knew this when AOC came after Jill Stein, who was against the genocide, who had solidarity with the Palestinian people, who had an actual progressive platform, part of her campaign, which included reparations, by the way. That's who AOC chose to attack instead of attacking the candidate who was still willing to give Israel the weapons, the candidate who did not have a progressive agenda. So these people are not fighters. And because they did not fight, this is how you get this. Ken Klippenstein says, breaking, enough Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to advance their funding bill, including the following 10. So if any of these senators here are your senators, you might want to jot this down. Catherine Cortez Masto, Dick Durbin, John Fetterman, Kirsten Gillibrand, Maggie Hassan, Angus King, Gary Peters, Brian Schatz, Chuck Schumer, and Jean Shaheen. Chuck Schumer's the big one that people are attacking because he is the leader for the Democrats in the Senate. But I want you to look at these names. First and foremost, I just want to remind everybody, I was shamed and name called and dragged through the mud for warning people a couple of years ago when John Fetterman decided to run for Senate that he was not a progressive. He did not support these progressive policies and that he was horrible on Israel. He was endorsed by Hillary Clinton. I don't understand why the bells and whistles didn't go off for people, right? They said, no, you got to support him. He's a progressive. Now some of those same people are now saying, oh my God, this guy's pathetic. If you would have looked through his background and did your research like I did, you would have seen how John Fetterman really was and where he stood on the issues. But they thought he was progressive and cool because he wore a hoodie. So you got John Fetterman and Chuck Schumer voting for the GOP bill. The Democratic Party, they're not fighters. The Democratic Party has no backbone. The Democratic Party caved in because they're doing what their donors want them to do. It was not just Chuck Schumer's name on this list. There were 10 of them. And I think if you look them up on Open Secrets, you can see where they're getting a lot of their money from. The same people who stood there and told you that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, that Donald Trump was Hitler, he was a danger to society, have no problem passing Donald Trump's agenda. And yet people came after me. One corporate party, and that's what people fully have to understand. And just to show you how much Trump appreciated this, of course, he made a statement. This is Qasim Rashid says, when every Democrat and independent is condemning your poor judgment and the fascist in the White House is praising your poor judgment, you deserve to be fired from your job as Senate leader and be forced out of the Senate altogether. So people are coming after Chuck Schumer now. He says, Schumer, resign. There is a call for Chuck Schumer to step down. And here is the message from Donald Trump. Congratulations to Chuck Schumer for doing the right thing. Took guts and courage. The big tax cuts, LA fire fix, debt ceiling bill, and so much more is coming. We should all work together on that very dangerous situation. A non-pass would be a country destroyer. Approval will lead us to new heights. Again, really good and smart move by Senator Schumer. This could lead to something big for the USA, a whole new direction and beginning. That's the statement there from Donald Trump. And so, as I said, now you have Chuck Schumer and those 9 other Democrats doing the bidding of Donald Trump. Don't forget, when Joe Biden was in office, you didn't see the Republicans move that way. So the Democratic Party is not together. And what we have seen more and more is that Dem leadership is willing to move towards the right or further towards the right because that appeases their donors, that appeases Wall Street, that appeases the military industrial complex. They're willing to do that instead of move to the left and support a populist working class agenda that can help everyday average Americans. Bernie Sanders is running around the US right now, doing all these rallies, talking about we're out there fighting against the oligarchy. You look kind of foolish when 10 members of your own party is supporting what Donald Trump and Elon Musk want. They are billionaires. So how do you go to these rooms and you speak and say, we have to fight back against the billionaire interest on the right when your party is also consumed by billionaire interests? It's a game. These people never meant to act for the working class people. And there's such division right now that even Khanna is calling out Chuck Schumer. There's a lot of tension going on online, you guys. I know some of you are not on X. So I got to bring it to you. There's a lot of tension. Ro Khanna said when the Senate minority leader sells you out, the only option is to take back the party and country with grassroots activists in blue and red districts to stand up for the Constitution and our democracy. So you see, this is exactly what my comrade Nick from RBN explained to Ro Khanna to his face. This is exactly what I said to Ro Khanna about 2.5 years ago. This party is not moving in the direction for the working class. It moved away from that, I would say, back during the Bill Clinton days. He goes on to say, right here, the problem with Schumer's action, like Lucy pulling the football away every time before Charlie Brown kicks it, is it makes all congressional Dems look feckless and undermines trust, as if the fix is in, as if we're just acting. That's why we need to call this out. Sounds like Ro Khanna's been watching independent media. They are actors. They are actors. It is an act. It is fake. Because the reality is, when you have the opportunity, when you have the moment to stand up to the oligarchy, to stand up to the billionaire class, you too, Ro Khanna, have caved in. You sat right there a year ago and told people to support Joe Biden when he can hardly keep an eye open or speak straight. Then you switched over and told people to support Kamala Harris while she was getting all this billionaire money. Now you want to speak out against billionaires because Donald Trump is a billionaire. He's in office and he's working with Elon Musk. All of you are complicit. All of you are complicit. It's easy to point at Chuck Schumer right now because he's the Senate minority leader. But at the end of the day, when you guys had the opportunity to stand up, you decided to sit down because you wanted to continue to have your career. That's what you would have done. That's why all of you are complicit. All of you are complicit, like Ro Khanna, when you sat up there and you decided to tell people to vote for Joe Biden when you knew damn well he did not have a working class agenda. You can even see it here. Shout out to Power to the People. Chuck Schumer failed on purpose. He gave Trump and the GOP everything they want because it is what he and his party and his donors want too. The Democrats are con artists who pretend to serve the people when in reality, they serve the oligarchy too. We need a new party and a new system. And thank you so much for sharing this Power to the People. As you can see it here, it says Schumer, the art of the fail. I guess it's supposed to be kind of similar to the art of the deal. Enough is enough. American Civil Liberties Union. These are all the people coming after him. A stunning display of moral and political cowardice. That's from Democracy of America. They got less than nothing. It's baffling. That's from Indivisible. Fury is from MoveOn.org. Democrats cave from Think Progress. Why people don't believe the Democratic Party stands for anything. That's from Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Tears of disappointment and anger. That's from America's Voice. It's official. Chuck Schumer is the worst negotiator in Washington. And that is from Credo. And to that, I say this. I've been telling you guys for the longest time, some of these people got to go. Okay? Chuck, and I know, friend of the show, Roger Meadows, has attended meetings that Chuck Schumer hosted, one in particular where he admitted that the government can afford to pay for Medicare for all. Chuck knows the game. Chuck knows. Chuck has got to go. Just like I told you Hakeem Jeffries needs to go, Hakeem Jeffries also got to go. These are not leaders. Leaders lead. Leaders don't follow. You sat right there and followed what Trump wanted you to do for the GOP spending bill. How is that leading? I made a whole video about Hakeem Jeffries telling you where he came from, how he changed, the money that he took to get there, his alignment with the Israeli lobby, and the people he was willing to screw over in his own community to get that seat. Now, they wanted Hakeem Jeffries in there because he was going to fight for Israel. So he got in. Charles Barron, who was actually a real fighter in the community for the people, he should have been in that seat. Charles Barron wouldn't stand for this, but that's why he's not there. So there's Chuck Schumer just bowing out. So when you make these statements that Donald Trump is Hitler and, oh my God, he's making the country crazy and all those types of statements, and then you go along with what Donald Trump wants you to do, why would you go along with someone if they're Hitler? If there are all these things that you say, all of these things that you say, why would you go along with them? And then this one really just took the cake. I couldn't believe someone actually said this. This is from Jack Cocciarella. He's a doozy, right? So we're starting a Democratic Tea Party, right? I'm going to say this again, guys. This guy literally said tonight, or last night, we're starting a Democratic Tea Party, right? There was a Democratic Tea Party. It was called Justice Democrats. And through all in all, what we thought was a good idea at that point in time, there were a number of pundits that said, just go along with the corporate Democrats. Don't fight them. Don't fight back against them. Just vote for the Democrat. Who cares if they're progressive or not? Now, all of a sudden, people have forgotten this. Now, all of a sudden, Jack don't remember. Boop, gone. There was a left Tea Party called Justice Democrats. They went into the Democratic Party, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, etc. And they ended up going along with Dem leadership. They caved Dem leadership because it turns out, contrary to what AOC said when she said she didn't care if she would be a first-time congressperson, it turns out that wasn't true. And when some of us tried to hold them accountable, we were called all kinds of names. When I told you that this day was coming, that if they did not use their narrow majority while they had it, this is what you would get. That if you can't get any concessions for someone who's running for Speaker of the House, you don't fucking vote for them. And now you don't have a narrow majority, and now there's nothing you can do. So what happens? The party is going to move further and further to the right. This is what I've been trying to tell people. Sorry if I get a little frustrated. It's just, this is so annoying to me because I tried to explain this is what's going to happen if you don't hold Dem leadership accountable. But according to Jamal Bowman, they were afraid of Nancy Pelosi, which tells me again, they were just looking for a political career. Even Zaina here, Zaina, who worked with Justice Democrats back in the day when AOC was running, if the neolibs are switching gears, they need to hear. We tried this. I advised 100 insurgent federal races as they were blocked and demonized by Dem establishment. The Dem party even protected GOP Senate incumbents over people like Paula Jean Swearengin and Betsy Sweet. Listen to the lessons we learned and have some humility. Zaina's right, and not to mention this as well. Don't forget that even some of these progressive organizations at the end of the day, instead of endorsing those Justice Democrats, they decided to endorse the corporate Democrat candidate. This happened to a number of people who ran through Working Families Party, where instead of endorsing the progressive candidate from Justice Democrats, these people were endorsing the corporate Democrat. They all bought in. Now, what's the problem with this bill? Let's go into this because some people are probably wondering, what's the big deal? I'm going to show you both sides because that's what we do on the show. I'll show you what the Republicans say are in the bill, and I'll show you what the Democrats say are in the bill. So let's get into it here. The Republicans say this, that there's $13 billion decrease in non-defense spending, which Republicans are touting as $13 billion in savings would stem from the removal of projects or one-time initiatives funded by lawmakers known as earmarks in fiscal year 2024. according to a House Appropriations Committee spokesperson. Okay, so it goes on to say that this measure would not affect money directed to these projects in the last fiscal year, but it would not repeat the funding for the same projects. It also says, again, this is what the Republicans are saying is in the bill. They said that there's a stopgap measure and that this would support federal wildland firefighters, including raising their pay and providing premium pay for those responding to fires. It would increase funding for air traffic control systems by $753 million, funding for nutrition assistance to mothers, infants, and children in the WIC program. They said this would jump more by $500 million to a total of $7.6 billion, a request made by the Trump administration. It also says they're going to increase funding for the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which supports low-income senior citizens. The bill includes a provision that effectively neuters lawmakers' powers to force a vote on whether they terminate a president's ability to impose tariffs. So hold on to that part. Now, here's what the Democrats say are in the bill, because you're going to see two different things. Two different things, okay? Okay, so the Democrats are saying that this creates slush funds for the Trump administration to reshape spending priorities, eliminate longstanding programs, pick winners and losers, and more. It goes on to say that they're highlighting lawmakers said that a variety of spending cuts contained in the continued resolution, including slicing $185 million for defense nuclear non-proliferation programs, slashing $1.4 billion from the Army Corps of Engineers construction funding used to projects to mitigate the impacts of hurricanes and floods. It also says they are reducing the support for rural broadband community connect program by $30 million. That would affect people. If you're in a rural area and you kind of relying on, you need broadband, this will be an issue. Cut nearly $800 million from veteran affairs facility construction, eliminate up to $40 million in election security grant funding, and trim assistance to farmers to improve their lands and participate in conservation activities by $30 million. It says the package would not provide additional funds for FEMA disaster relief fund, which they will need more money before the end of the fiscal year. The bill will limit DC spending to its fiscal year 2024 level for the rest of the year. And of course, it goes on to say that DC Mayor Bowser and other district officials warned at a press conference on Monday that the district would have slashed $1.1 billion of its approved budget if this bill passes. These cuts could strip funding away from public safety, education, and economic growth priorities. Now, Colin from Indie News Network is a teacher in DC, and Colin is kind of on standby waiting to see if he's going to be impacted. So obviously, as you can see, both parties are saying two completely different things about this bill. So it's probably a mixture of both. Either way, what stands true is that the Democratic Party is divided. So while all these years, while Biden was in office, while they appeared to pretend like they were together, things are not what they seem. They weren't really together. They are divided and even more divided now. And you would think that since Trump is in office, the Democratic Party would be more together. They would have a better coalition. Their coalition would be stronger. But that's not what we're seeing. What I have been seeing since Donald Trump came into the White House, it seems very clear to me that the Democratic Party, the Democrat politicians in Congress, are further apart from each other now than they were under Biden. And I don't really know what that means, but I can say this. What it shows you, this vote by Chuck Schumer, it shows you that once again, Dem leadership is more willing to cave to the Republican Party than they are to cave to progressive policies within their own party. And that's going to be a problem. Now, why do I say this? I say this because of this. Everything that you are seeing happening right now, all of this division is a furthermore reason to support third parties. It is a furthermore reason that we need more third party action in this country. That we need to make it so that corporate media, and of course the Democratic Party, they spend all this money to fight against the Green Party. But the people who choose to remain in the Democratic Party but agree with the Green Party policies, you might be part of the problem. Why are you staying with this party that doesn't even serve you? Why? And people say, oh, because Donald Trump. Dem leadership is supporting Donald Trump, man. These people are not leaders. They're cavers. And they would rather try to work with the right than work with those who consider themselves to be progressives. Because at the end of the day, both party leadership despises the left agenda. If there was ever a time to push for people to go towards third parties, now is that time. I said the same thing during, the genocide, but I say it again now because this ain't working. This isn't working. And I hope people are seeing what this shows, that these squad members are now lack there of a squad. They're not getting any gains in this party. None of these progressive policies have passed on the national level. They've passed through the states. And that's kind of where people need to really redirect their attention. If you want things to pass like that, you kind of need to look at the states. But they haven't passed on the national level. There is no growth, no wins for a progressive agenda through the Democratic Party. Time to get out if you hadn't. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.